The feminist movement started in the 1970s as a response to the alleged oppression that women had been subjugated for the past number of years. Women felt, or rather, were made to feel, that they needed equal rights to those of men. They were told how they had been subjugated for centuries, and now was the time to ask for their rightful share in the society. Now, I don't mean to say that women had an easy ride in the world, nor am I trivializing the hardships that women had faced or are facing even now. All I'm saying is how such machinations were orchestrated by the powers that be, who sit behind closed doors and dark curtains while controlling the world in which we live in. The bottom line is that suddenly everyone woke up to the oppression and tyranny that women were subjected to for millennia. I mean, this is what they want us to believe because it suits their stated globalist objectives. Not to mention the absurd coincidence of the emanation of this feminist project right after Nixon had banned gold convertibility in 1971 through an act passed by the US Congress, which rendered the US dollar a fiat currency. One thing led to another, and somehow women were brainwashed into believing that taking care of the home, being a mother, and being someone's wife are all paths to further oppression. They were told that whatever they had been doing for centuries was all farce, and the dawn of a new age would truly liberate them. Now, this led to a very peculiar situation where women could not figure out what exactly to do to end their supposed oppression. Well, not to worry, folks. Here came the military industrial complex to their rescue. They quickly told women that working outside their homes for salaried jobs would actually mean empowerment. So, what happens next? Well, traditional gender roles were all labeled oppressive and patriarchal, and working for the free market, which in turn was controlled by a small set of elites, was labeled as freedom. Being a good homemaker was traded with being an employee who made Excel sheets and PPTs to make a living. Being a mother was traded with the ambition of getting into the corner office. Family values were frowned upon, and modernity came at the cost of ditching traditional knowledge systems. The game that was played with women had disastrous consequences. The feminist movement led to a confusing state of affairs for the entire society, where women were told that working for their homes was patriarchal, but working in offices for a boss was empowering. The emergence of hyper individualism led to the complete dismantling of the family structure. Well, we can't cry about that, as the feminist movement also labeled the family structure as oppressive and patriarchal. To make matters worse, this hyper individualism led to the demonization of marriage. Marriage was labeled patriarchal, and women were sold the idea of solo trips being liberating. What feminism exactly did to the institution of marriage will be discussed in a later video, but for now, let's stay on course with our focal topic. If you think about it, humans created the institution of marriage for a couple of things. Reproduction and carrying the lineage forward were one of them. Marriage gave two humans to mate with each other within the confines of societal adherence and community based validity. Now, feminists can argue about it in other ways, but the core idea still prevails. Now, in demonizing the institution of marriage, the deep state dealt a severe blow to the fertility rates of the society. Birth rates of a nation are just a consequence of this. The idea that somehow motherhood was an additional burden that women ought to carry on their shoulders laid the path for numerous agitations across the world, where women started avoiding performing one of their core natural duties for which nature had chosen them, giving birth to a baby human. All this might seem too patriarchal and misogynistic, but if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, you get my point that I'm trying to say here. We can produce cars, aeroplanes, paperclips, rockets, and shoes in a factory. But what we can't produce in a factory is a baby human. The capability is not something we have been able to replicate as of yet. Nature rolled the dice and gave everyone some particular tasks to complete. Giving birth to a human is something that nature chose women to do, and there isn't anything we can do about it. Call me patriarchal or any other fancy little word, but this is what it is. I never saw or heard a man getting pregnant and giving birth to a child. This was just the beginning of the end. The end is not near for certain societies which have retained their roots, but for others, extinction is crawling to embrace them in the coming decades. And this is what we all should be scared of. Stay tuned for more.